Hello, viewers, and welcome back to Between the Lines. This is the first episode of Between the Lines Pop Culture, and I am so pumped about this new series. So, I first want to start off by apologizing to you viewers about not posting this on Saturday. If I'm going to be quite frank with you, I did record this audio. I did edit it. I was so excited to put it up, and then I played the audio back. And I just want to say it was so horrible, and I was so embarrassed to put it up. And I've just been so busy that I haven't had the time to actually put it up. So now that I do have the time to, re-record the show today, that I'm gonna put it up now. And so I'm just so excited to talk to you guys and to do this whole series. And here we go. So for this first show, I will be doing a theme like I always do. And so this theme I think will be this idea of being aware. And what I mean by this is people just need to be cognizant of what they say, because for some reason people feel as though what they say and how they say it is correct, and they believe that their opinion is fact for some reason. So that's why I just want to say to people, be aware of what you may say and how you may offend people. And so the first story I'm going to talk about will be from Billie Eilish. So let me backtrack. So basically, this whole series will be about different celebrities and stories pertaining to them for the week. So our first story will be Billie Eilish. For those of you who do not know her, she is this 18-year-old singer-songwriter. People love her. You know, they find that her music is just so great. Now, I can't give you my opinion on that, but this is just for you to know. So she's an 18-year-old singer-songwriter, and she criticized hip-hop in an article that she did. So to her, she thinks that hip-hop is a genre about posing and lying about a person's life. Eilish received backlash for her comments. In essence, people claim that Eilish has a lot to say about a cultural genre, which is hip-hop, but she can appropriate fashion from the black culture. The article goes on to mention how Miley Cyrus made similar comments in 2017 about hip hop. She too has been accused of appropriating black culture. And so, for me, I think the moral of the story is not about cultural appropriation. I think that, cultural appropriation, it has been around for a very long time, especially appropriation within about the black community. And so I think this conversation is kind of getting tiring and old. But I think a conversation that we should speak about is, this idea of if you don't know the origins of something or what it means today, then don't speak about it. Especially if it's not within the culture that you grew up in. So, the fact that Billie Eilish had something to say about hip hop, I find that the real story, like, we should educate ourselves on what is hip hop. So, of course, hip hop is a black musical genre. Back in the day, like when it first started, hip hop was basically a genre that highlighted what was going on in the neighborhood. So rappers were known as the reporters of the hood. Hip hop was used to talk about black America that the media would not talk about. So the media always talked about, crime within the black community. And basically rappers at that time, they were trying to shed light on what was really going on. There were drugs and, gang banging and things like that, but there was more to it. It was a culture behind it. And so that was basically the point of it. Later on, hip hop became a little more about people, especially like Diddy back in the 90s, Diddy, Biggie, and a few other rappers. They decided to talk about what they aspired to have. So, the women, the houses, the cars. And it eventually became what they rapped about, they eventually had. So, Biggie ended up having those furs and, the women and the bottles and the club and all of that. And so hip hop has always been about, posing or as Billie Eilish would say, posing for a life that wasn't theirs. But the point was, it was something that you aspired to. It was like a daydream almost. And so I think until you know the history of something, I think you should be quiet. Now, I will say that hip hop is not what it used to be. And I know for me, I appreciate hip hop so much. Now, if you want to talk about where the state of rap is now, let's have a conversation about that. You know, I can go on and talk about how nowadays I can't understand a whole lot of rappers and what they're saying. You know, as Meek Mill once said, your favorite rapper is a mumble rapper. And he was correct. You know, I think that that's an issue in hip hop. I think also this idea of, you know, we're no longer saying words, we're making up sounds, you know, to replace words. I'm not a big fan of. I'm also not truly, you know, a big fan of the fact that we're not stringing along sentences. Rather, we're stringing along words. And if you know Migos, that's what I'm talking about. You know, now I think people listen more to hip hop for the music, like the actual beat, than the actual lyrics. And I don't know, like that's. I mean, I enjoy the beats and I listen to music for the beats, but I really do appreciate hip hop when it has something to say that is worth value. So, you know, I say to Billie Eilish, you know, next time you want to say something, you know, think twice before you say it. Be aware of what you're saying because you're not making much sense. And to be quite honest with you, you're not sounding very intelligent in this conversation. So, that is story one. So the next one we're going to talk about is Gayle King. So as you may have known, CBS released a snippet of an interview that Gayle King did with Lisa Leslie. She is a WNBA champion and a friend to the late Kobe Bryant. In the clip, you hear King asking Leslie about Bryant's 2003 rape charges. After receiving tremendous backlash from the interview, King made a statement about how the network released the most salacious part of the interview on the internet without her permission and without context. She expressed her disapproval of how the clip was presented to viewers and apologized for the misunderstanding. So that's the main story, but there is another story that kind of it's after this one. So, of course, there were a lot of celebrities who came out and had a lot to say. So, like 50 Cent felt as though, you know, Gayle King and even Oprah, like they attack black men, but they don't ever talk about, you know, allegations that happen between white people who are accused of similar misconduct, especially Harvey Weinstein. And then you have people like Snoop Dogg and Bill Cosby who also spoke out. Bill Cosby spoke out and he's behind bars. Can you believe that, people? But what I think was, you know, most prevalent that I saw was, or most troubling was what I heard Snoop Dogg say. And he basically called Gayle a bitch. Now that I have a huge problem with. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I think the 2 points I really want to hammer home in this story is basically, you know, the fact that black people need to have an internal conversation about how we handle things. So number one, I think Gayle King, like her whole situation, I think was bad. And I think this is the only time on the show I think I will actually speak to the headline, well, in this particular story. So, you know, I wonder what did Gayle King think the network was going to do when she did the interview. I mean, the media's job is to make money. Now, of course, they're supposed to report, but for some reason it seems like money over facts in some cases, or how we spin the story to make it sound more salacious and to get more views. And I mean, the fact that she wasn't even aware that this industry had an agenda made me think like, all right, well, this industry is not for you if you don't know what their goal and aim is. You know, like, I wonder, like, the fact that she claimed that she never knew, that they were going to post these parts. I mean, did she not see the interview that she did with R. Kelly? I mean, I think we all saw that interview. And despite what you may think about R. Kelly, that interview made him look so bad. And what made it look so bad was the fact that he was hysterical. And all you hear Gail saying is, Robert, Robert. Like, did you not think that that was a bad part to show? Or did you just not care in that moment? But now you care. And so my thing is this: don't act like you're a victim in this situation. You know, I mean, the fact that you wanted to have a so-called conversation about this, I mean, I feel as though this conversation should have been an internal conversation within Black people, within the Black culture, about what is the legacy that Kobe Bryant leaves, not a conversation that you have on a white media platform where it looks like you're slandering a man who cannot defend himself because he is dead. So, this idea of, well, I didn't know what was going to happen, this victimhood that she claimed. I mean, she is not the victim in this situation because she caused herself to be in this position. And then I go on to Snoop Dogg's response, which I did mention I did not like. I felt as though the fact that he called her a bitch, it was startling because, as I spoke about, hip hop, it was a form of, talking about what you aspire to, but hip hop also called Black females bees. And, it's one of the most degrading words because it means a female dog. So, I mean, the fact that, Black men are referring to Black women in such a term, I mean, when you basically give other races permission to call Black women the same thing. And Black men can't even defend Black women because they do it too. So we need to have an internal conversation, Black people, myself included, about, what are these conversations in these terms that we are referring to us as? It's bad enough that the outside world has names for Black people, but the fact that we're calling each other those same things, is so bad, and it just denigrates us as a people, and no wonder, Black people don't have self-respect for themselves. I mean, think about what you're calling yourself. If you don't have enough self-respect to call yourself other than a bee or, a whore, I mean, what do you expect of other people to treat you with respect that you don't have for yourself? So, I mean, I think this story talks about, of course, the headline itself and, Gail claiming victimhood and all of that. But it's also this conversation about, the internal conversation that Black people need to have within themselves about how we want to talk about people both living and dead, and how we want to refer to ourselves when we talk about one another outside of the culture and in the culture. So I think that was, something that should be spoken of more. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is Beyonce. So there are two stories behind that. One is, it doesn't really pertain to her too much, but it involves her. And then the other one is really about her. So the first story is, Adidas, as you all know, did a collaboration with Beyonce's sportswear company, Ivy Park. And they came under criticism, well, especially Adidas, because they did not have sizes beyond XL. And so to rectify the situation, after so many complaints, Adidas made the clothing collaboration in larger sizes. And so I think this conversation has nothing to do with, they should have made more sizes or whatever, because I feel as though every company is entitled to do whatever they want to, but they should accept any repercussions of them not doing what should have been done. But I think the overall arching conversation that we need to talk about is one of self-respect. So, I don't understand why people were outraged over the fact that they could not spend their money at Adidas. I mean, Adidas did not make a product in your size. And instead of you saying, deuces, I'm not going to spend my money here, instead you complained so that you could spend your money a place who does not recognize you within their size categories. They don't feel as though you are worthy enough to have clothing that they create in your size. So why are you spending your money there? I don't understand that. And I mean, you complain, and what does that really solve? You complaining that they're not making these sizes, oh, well, you're not making them. You think that they're really going to treat you with respect? No, not really. I mean, at most they'll continue, like they'll probably make the clothing, but at most they will still disrespect you because you have shown them that, it doesn't matter how you treat me, I'm still going to buy things from you. And so, I think this conversation about, if a company does not value me as a customer, I'm not going to pay there. And I think that that's something that we should really have a conversation about. I mean, it even extends beyond Adidas. I mean, I say the same thing about Michael Kors. Michael Kors said, I don't find that black people should be buying my stuff because I didn't design my clothing for black people. Well, if that is the case, then why are black people still buying their products? I mean, like, I'm sure, like, because they're at Marshall's, they're cheaper, they're nice clothing and everything. And I mean, I'm sometimes guilty of this too. But I mean, if a man basically said, I don't want you buying my clothing, why are we buying it? Why are we supporting this man? And I mean, to be quite honest with you, Michael Kors wouldn't be what it is today if it was not for the black consumer. But I mean, most things would not be what it is today if it were not for the black consumer. So, I think that, black folks especially, since we are the biggest pool of the market share, we shouldn't be buying products from companies that, basically treat us like crap. Go somewhere else, black owned businesses, it might be a little more expensive, but at least, they value you a little more than some of these other companies that would, basically give you the middle finger once you turn your back. So, that's something that I think we need to have a conversation about. So the second story regarding Beyonce and Jay-Z regards the Super Bowl. So Jay-Z and Beyonce received backlash over them not standing for the national anthem during the Super Bowl. Many thought it was a political protest to the anthem. Jay-Z explained to the audience at a Q&A session at Columbia University that they did not stand because they were in artist mode. They were more focused on the performances than on the fact that it was the national anthem. And so for this one, I felt as though, people were asking why were people outraged by this? And, I don't even think it was about the outrage itself, but I think it's this conversation of with great power comes great responsibility. Jay-Z and Beyonce made a very big deal, when Colin Kaepernick decided not to stand, to basically support him. And they were basically telling people, yeah, like, you have the right to protest this national anthem. And I mean, even Beyonce made a political statement at the Super Bowl when she did Formation, and basically did a salute to the Black Panthers. So they have protested, the national anthem on a greater level than other people. And because of their platform, they made the stand that they did. Now, the responsibility comes in that one because you have already said something about this particular song and what it stands for, and et cetera, and et cetera. The point is that if you do not want to speak on this any further, then don't give people a reason to speak on it. So the fact that you guys did not stand, I mean, you should have known that it was going to make a statement, especially because you've said things about it. So if you don't want to make statements about something, don't stand. Like, stand and shut up and don't act like, well, why are people upset? I mean, because this is one of the most controversial things and controversial protests, I think, in a while. And what people fail to realize is there's so much history behind it. It's not just this thing of whether you stand or not, but it means something to people. And if you're going to protest something that means something to people one time, understand that in other people's minds, that will always be a protest. So I say to that one, if you have the power to protest something, then you need to be responsible enough to know how to handle those situations if you're not protesting it anymore. So that is what I have to say on that one. So the last story I'm going to talk about is Nicki Minaj. There are two stories regarding her. She's just been all over the news lately, so we're going to try and get down to the nitty gritty. So the first story is Nicki Minaj released a teaser for her new song Yikes, which has a line that stated, and this is a paraphrase thing. So all you bitch's Rosa Parks, get your ass up. People have found this line very offensive because Rosa Parks' birthday was around the time of the teaser. Nicki Minaj responded to the blowback by saying she didn't care about it. And so I think with this one, there are 2 points. You know, so one is this reference of, again, bitch. Like, can we find some other references than that? And I mean, this idea that, there all you bitch's are juxtaposed with Rosa Parks can be offensive because to most people now that means that you're also referring to Rosa Parks as a B. So, the fact that she did not see how this is, offensive, I think is something that I don't understand why she didn't say that. Like, she didn't understand that. And two, I think that, we need to stop referring to ourselves as that. And then the second thing is, people need to accept responsibility for when they're wrong and move forward. I thought that the line wasn't good. And I could see how it was offensive because that was the bitch was juxtaposed to Rosa Parks, which a lot of people thought, okay, that meant that Rosa Parks is also a B. I think had she just accepted the fact that this was offensive to some and apologized, this story would have been over. Like, you would not have had to have Complex and TMZ report on this on several occasions. And so, I mean, she could have apologized. Now, how I feel about this is apologize, but mean the apology. Don't just apologize because you've now, received backlash. That's what a whole lot of people do just to cover their behinds. But she should apologize because it was offensive and move forward and just leave it alone. But that's my thought. So the second story regarding Nicki Minaj is that she went back and forth with her ex Meek Mill on Twitter. In the online confrontation, Nicki alleged that Meek abused her. These allegations were quickly denied, and Meek alleged that Nicki, quote, "been knew your brother was raping that little girl." Later, Nicki apologized for getting involved in this conflict. So, for me, I'm not even going to address the comments that were made, but I will say this in regards to this thing. Two things, actually. Number one, everything doesn't need to be aired out for the world to see or know. You do not, I find like if you have a person with a problem, you have a private conversation about that. Not you go on Twitter or wherever and just lay a person out. Like, that's so not cool. And it makes both of y'all look like fools because you both engaged in it. And I mean, the fact that you guys would even do this knowing that, number one, you guys used to be in a relationship, and two, you're both in separate relationships, shows me that you have very little respect for one another, for yourselves, and the person you're with. So, another thing, self-respect. Have enough respect not to do this online. And two, it was very disheartening to see that it was two black people going back and forth, over something dumb. And really the whole start of this was over a like of a picture. Like, please have a little more self-control in the way that you speak about things and speak about people. I mean, and it's the fact that, a lot of these stories have in common the fact that it involves black people and the communication, which it seems like people suck at, and people not knowing, that there's a right way to communicate and a wrong way. So, this all goes back to the idea of being aware. Be aware of what you say, how you say it, and even if you don't like something, the point is, even if you don't have respect for that person, at least have enough respect for yourself that you're not going to say things that sound stupid as I don't know what. And Nicki Minaj going back and forth with Meek Mill sounds so stupid. Like I don't know what. Just like Gayle King. That was stupid. Snoop Dogg, that was stupid. Like, it just makes no sense to me that the stupidity that goes on, which is unbelievable, number one, and number two, it goes on in the black community. No wonder, people look at black folks like, really? I mean, I'm looking at them like, really? So, I ask people, as you go along in life this week, be aware of what you say, how you say it, and to whom you say it to, you know. So, thank you very much for listening. I apologize for not getting this up earlier, and I shall see you, speak to you on the next video. So, bye.